evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. You know, as the music was playing, I was doing this thing that Jon Stewart, the Jon Stewart show on TV. He's always like writing on something on his pad, and he's really not doing anything. So I don't know. I just thought I would try that and see how that went. Anyway, tonight's show is number 92, and it's going to be, I think, a very interesting show. Kind of tied together with the last show I did, number 91, which was the streets of Florence. This is going to be Italy top to bottom. And instead of looking at Italy from from a street level, we're going to be going up to some high places and looking down. So that's kind of an interesting way of doing that. I've kind of worked out the two shows together with that in mind. So that should be, pretty interesting. But let's start with this. I don't think there'll be a problem with remember that problem we had last week with the thing being knocked off the bottom?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have that problem. Okay, so it's Italy top to bottom, and basically it means that we're going to be going to some great view locations, but not from ground level, from up high. But first, a little word about the trip that I'm taking with Laura starting on Monday. And there's going to be a hiatus where I won't be doing a live show for a while, probably at least 3 or 4 weeks while I'm on the trip, and then we come home and we start to organize all the photos and videos, and we really start to look at the different broadcasts that I could do over the course of the year. So between that and the time of the next show could be a few weeks. But this is the plan that we have for our 2 weeks in Italy, starting on Monday. And I'm always a little reluctant to talk about a trip that is going to be occurring in a few days, because I don't really want to, give it bad luck by talking about it beforehand. But I decided that I owe it to my viewers to at least talk about, what the basic plan is, and I think I'm going to try that. So the plan that I have worked out in a very general way is we're flying into Milano, and really you don't fly into the city of Milan, you really fly into the airport that is connected to Milan, known as Malpensa, which is about 40 minutes northwest of the city. So we're flying into that airport, and then we rent a car immediately, and we immediately drive to Monterosso al Mare, which is located in the area known as Cinque Terre, on the very southern portion of the Italian Riviera. And it's a beautiful, beautiful spot, and we will be spending 3 nights there. The part that I'm the most nervous about, as I was talking to Ellen before the show started, was driving, actually the drive from Milano down to Genoa, which is right on the western coast of Italy, will be an easy ride because we're taking major roads. It's called the Autostrada, as I've mentioned on the show many times, and that'll be an easy ride. But then from that point to where we're going at this town, Monterosso al Mare, is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So a little nervous about that, but I've driven on roads like this many, many times. We're going to be there 3 days, and we're going to probably try to, photograph and video as much as we possibly can of not only that town, but other towns in the 5-town, Cinque Terre means 5 lands. So we're going to be looking at some of the other towns and maybe some other places along that section of the Italian Riviera, such as maybe Levanto and Sestri Levante. And then we're going to drive to Chiesina Uzzenese, as you can see there, which is in western Tuscany, and that is the location of the place where Lydia lives. Lydia lives in that town, and we're going to drive there, probably by way of some other town that we'd like to visit, and we'll spend the day there and then meet Lydia. And we're spending 4 nights with Lydia, and she will be driving us around because the next morning I return my car, and then I'm free of the worry of driving around, and Lydia will do the driving for the next 4 days. And we're gonna be visiting many, many tiny little towns in western Tuscany. And that'll be really fun, and Lydia, of course, is an expert, because she lives there. She is then driving us to Florence. She will go to work that Tuesday morning, and we will stay in Florence for 3 nights, 3 full days, visiting some of our favorite haunts, having our favorite meals, and visiting with my other friend Luca, and also a couple of other people that were intending to meet there. And then we're going to take the train to Verona on Lake Como for our last day and a half in Italy, and we're going to kind of spend a relaxing time in our favorite town on Lake Como, and then taking a taxi to the airport for the trip home, which will be on Sunday, June 8th. So that's the trip, and hopefully, we'll come home with a lot of good material, which I could then fashion into broadcasts that we will do over the next year. And my goal for the summer, I won't be having to go, to work in the city, is to really spend the time working out a whole bunch of new shows. So that's that goal. But really, all I hope for are 2 things. Good health, and that's really not only the first thing that I hope for, but the first 10 things I hope for. Good health for both me and for Laura. Otherwise, the trip is, a complete loss. And also good weather. And that, of course, both of those things you really have very little control over. And, with good health and good weather, nothing else is important. Whatever else unfolds will be fine with us. So, that just want that on record. So here it is, Alan's Italy, show number 92, Italy top to bottom, and it parallels the show I did 2 weeks ago when I spoke about my favorite streets in Florence. Can you see the Florence on that graphic? Can you see the word Florence?
No, it's gone.
Yeah, because that's what happens. Okay, I understand it now. So that was the show we did 2 weeks ago, and that was views of mostly Florence from ground level, and now we're going up, and we're going to start at the Piazzale Michelangelo. And this is a place that I have mentioned many, many times on the show, and this is a copy of the statue of David that Michelangelo sculpted and was revealed to the public in the year 1502. This is a copy, and they created this piazza, and they called it, Piazzale Michelangelo, named after the very famous artist of the 15th and 16th century. And there's the copy of David looking over at the city of Florence. And everybody comes up here. Oh, there's the original statue of David as it appears in the Galleria Accademia. And there's a picture of a photo of my friend David looking over at the city of Florence. And people come to this piazza with one idea in mind, and that is simply to look at the views. Nobody comes for any other purpose. It's just one big parking lot, and people just go to the edge of where the wall is, and they look at the various views, and everybody takes a photo of themselves in front of the view. And after that, after this picture was taken, we probably got back in the car and drove into Florence. So, that's the only purpose. And this is what you get to see. And this is the view of Florence, looking at it. Now, the Piazzale Michelangelo is on the southern portion of the Arno River, on the south side of the Arno River. And it gives you a view, first looking to the west, and that's where we're looking right now. And that, all the way on the extreme left of that picture is the Ponte Vecchio, the famous bridge, followed by another famous structure called the Palazzo Vecchio. That's that tower on the left side. And then as you go from west to then north and then to east, you come to all the different monuments and structures in Florence. And right there on the left side, you see the cathedral with the Campanile, which we'll take a closer look at later. And then right dead in the center is the Church of Santa Croce, and That green dome on the right is, of course, the synagogue of Florence, and off in the distance is the town of Fiesole, all of which we've spoken about on the show many, many times. And as you span the horizon going from the north now to the extreme east, you see a little better view of the synagogue and all the other things in the very eastern portion of the center of Florence. This is a really nice photograph. And then, of course, if you'd like, to get close-up shots, you can get a close-up shot of the bridges, which is always a very beautiful view. And there's an even better view of the Ponte Vecchio. And then a really great view of the cathedral with its magnificent dome, which was, of course, created by Brunelleschi. The Campanile, which is the tall tower of the three towers there, which was designed by Giotto. The structure on the left is the tower of the Church of the Badia Fiorentina, and the tower on the right of the Campanile is the tower of the Bargello. And that's a close-up of the Church of Santa Croce. All this from the Piazzale Michelangelo. So it's really, it's really the spot to begin a tour of Florence, getting to see all the various sites. This is one of my favorite photos because it shows you what a medieval tower looked like. This tower was, of course, attached to the walls that used to go around the city of Florence, and they've left a few of these towers, and they're really spectacular looking. And you get, of course, that from the Piazzale as well. There's a close-up of the synagogue with its magnificent green dome. Okay, so next we come to the Uffizi. And the Uffizi, as I've said on many occasions, is that building right over here. It's this building right here. All right, so that's the Uffizi. And when people go to the Uffizi, they are going primarily for the unbelievable collection of late Gothic, early Renaissance, high Renaissance, and even later than that. But as you go up in years, the collection kind of diminishes. But that's why people go. They go for the art. But there is a particular window that I've shown you again many times, and there it is, right up here. From this window, which is on the second floor where all the art is located, people come around this way, and they stop at this point to look at this incredible view of Florence from not extremely high up, but high enough to really get a very, very beautiful view of the Arno River. Namely, the Ponte Vecchio again from a different angle, the Vasari corridor, which is the red domed, this thing over here, rather than trying to describe it. It's this thing right here that comes right out of this building, down that way, and it goes actually across the bridge. That's called the Vasari corridor, which was, of course, a tunnel that the Medicis used to get from their offices to their home on the other side of the river. So you get this wonderful view from this window. And people stop there viewing of the art just so they could take in this particular view. And at all times of the day. This is a little later in the day when you don't quite get the same lighting, but people like that. People like to come at different times of the day to get a slightly different view. This is a really late in the evening view, just before sundown, taken from that same vantage point. And there's a distant view from that same window of the Uffizi. Everybody stops there on their way around, looking at the art. Okay, then we come to the roof of the hotel where I've stayed, many, many times. The roof of the Croce di Malta Hotel. Albergo is the Italian word for hotel, so that phrase there is Hotel Croce di Malta. And of course, this is the hotel. I'll be at this hotel in about a week and a half. And the best part of this hotel, in many people's opinions, are the views you get. This is a view from the balcony of the room that we've had many, many times, room 312, which has been nicknamed Alan's room. Whenever I go to the hotel, they basically greet me by saying Alan's room is all ready for you. This is the view you get from the balcony of that room. And it's, you know, it's a view of the back garden. It's a 15th century garden which has been turned into a lounging area during the summer months for people who go swimming in that pool and like to lounge around, you know, in that spot. And there's, you know, out of the view to the extreme left in the lower corner is a little patio where people have breakfast, you know, out. It's a very, very nice spot to have breakfast in the early summer. Then it gets really too hot to eat out there. And this is a view from the balcony as well, looking across at the roofs of Florence. And there's another view. This is not that high up. We're on the third floor, but you can do even better than that in the next picture from the roof of the hotel. And this is what, you know, people love this hotel for a number of reasons. It's just, you know, it's a wonderful hotel, and it's a great place to stay, and the rooms are nice, and the breakfast and the lobbies are very nice, as I've shown you on many occasions. But this is something that's really special. You could just go up there and look at the view, or you could actually have a drink up there, as you could see. There are tables for that purpose, and also people sometimes have breakfast up here, which is an amazing place to have breakfast. There's me with my friend Luca, who first introduced me to this spot. After I'd been to the hotel a few times, he said, "Have you ever been up to the roof?" And I said, "No," and he took me up there himself. And, you know, of course, nobody gives a tour of Florence as Luca does. And there's Luca speaking with David is right in the front there, and I'm right behind him. And Luca is giving us one of his tours of the city of Florence from above. And what we're looking at dead ahead is the Palazzo Vecchio. That's the tower of the Palazzo Vecchio. And of course there are times when I'm giving the tour, and that's me on the, you know, just to the right and a little out of the picture, giving the tour of Florence to David and to Luca. And then there are times when Luca and I are both giving the same tour, probably speaking simultaneously. And that's what's going on in this picture, is that Luca's pointing out something, and I'm pointing out something, and I'm not sure who's talking here, but, you know, he considers me the expert on Florence, and I consider him the expert on Florence. So I think I'm right. And this is what you get to see. Looking to the north, you get to see the Church of Santa Maria Novella with its beautiful tower and a beautiful sky. Look at that sky. It's just a beautiful sky looking off. This is looking off to the north and slightly to the east. This is looking directly to the east at the dome of the Church of San Lorenzo. And this is the cathedral. Boy, those people. You hear this? It's unbelievable. The people in the community center, as you know, as I've said many times, use it as, you know, there's a stage there and they do these productions, and it's like, sometimes it's really unbelievable. But anyway, there's the cathedral from the roof of the hotel in the distance with Giotto's Campanile. And right in front, but you could hardly see it, is the baptistry, and that's this building right over here. A great view of the baptistry. It sounds like somebody is being strangled to death next door. You think we should call 911? I don't know. And that's looking a little more to the southeast at the Palazzo Vecchio. That's actually the tower of the Palazzo Vecchio, with the hills off to the distance, looking really more towards the south. And this is looking almost directly south-southeast at the largest building in all of Florence, and that is the Palazzo Pitti. And that's that long building that you see there in the distance. And then looking due south of, in the city of Florence, is the Church of San Frediano with its really, really beautiful dome as well. One last view with a really gorgeous sky over the skyline of Florence. And of course, you know, on this trip we'll probably go up there for this view, because this is a really great view of Florence. One last view of the Church of San Frediano. This is, yeah, I think we're looking off to the south here, but it's really hard to tell. Another view looking off to the east, southeast. This is looking a little more, we're actually coming around now almost 360 degrees to the beginning. Okay, now we come to the suite, a suite at the Westin Excelsior. And I will tell you that the Westin Excelsior is one of the most beautiful hotels in Florence. I cannot afford to stay in this hotel, but during a very, very brief time, of a few years, I think it was 3 years, Laura and I were friends with the reception manager of the hotel. And the only thing better than being friendly with the general manager of a hotel is being friends with the reception manager. The reception manager is the person in charge of giving out rooms and quoting rates. So for a very brief time, we stayed at the Westin Excelsior. You could see that this is a very fancy hotel, right on the Arno River, right on the Piazza Ognissanti. And as I said, I only stayed here when we were given unbelievable discounts. And it's on one of my favorite piazzas. It's the Piazza Ognissanti, and this is looking towards the Arno, and this is looking towards the west. And this is the reason why the piazza gets its name, and that is the Church of Ognissanti, which is one of my favorite churches because it has works by my favorite artist, whose name of course is Ghirlandaio. There's also a painting by Botticelli. Botticelli is also buried in this church. So this is a really fascinating church, and the piazza gets its name from that church. This is me many years ago in the lobby of the Westin Excelsior, and you can look at that lobby. I mean, yeah, it's one of the really, really spectacular hotels in Florence, and it's very, very, very expensive. We once stayed in a suite that my friend had gotten for us that was $2,300 a night, which we got for $79. So that was really unbelievable. It was the same suite that President Clinton had stayed in during his visit to Florence in 1999. So that was an amazing experience. And this is the suite that we were taken into. This is a suite that we didn't actually stay in, but somebody else stayed in, a famous person whose name I'd like to not mention, although I know the name of the person who stayed here. And our friend said, keep this strictly to ourselves. So this is years later. She no longer works for that company at all. But this is the suite. There's nothing wrong with, looking at the suite. It's a bedroom and it's a living room, and it's, as you can see, it's really unbelievable. But from the terrace of this room, this is the view you get. So that's Laura and I sitting at the table on the patio that this suite is attached to. This is what the person had as their view, which is, quite amazing. When I show you views from the balcony of the room we get at the hotel, looking at the pool, that's like a tiny balcony. Maybe it's 5 feet long and maybe 2 feet wide. This is like magnificent. But from this balcony, you get some they even planted trees on the balcony, so it's really amazing. And these are the views you get. You get the views of Florence from really the roof, just about the rooftop, looking off to the east. You don't get a 360-degree view as you would from the roof of the Hotel Croce di Malta, but what you get is a pretty spectacular view of the Arno, looking over there straight ahead at the Palazzo Vecchio, and off to the left at the cathedral, the dome of the cathedral. And this is a little more towards the southeast, looking at the bridges. And that church steeple over there on the right side is the church steeple of the Church of Santo Spirito. And this is now looking almost directly south across the Arno at the Ponte alla Carraia, which is one of the bridges over the Arno. And there's, you know, now we've gone completely around. And this view is actually not taken from the suite that I just showed you. This view is probably taken from one of the rooms that we had, which was right on the Arno, because I don't think you could have gotten this view from the balcony of the suite I just showed you. This is more, you know, from a different angle. And then we come to Giotto's Campanile in Florence. And this is, you know, what I've referred to many times. That's the white tower over there on the left side. It was designed by Giotto, who was a very, very famous painter in the 1300s. When he passed away, the Campanile was finished just the way he had described it. And there it is, you know, a close-up view of it as it is right next to the cathedral. That's a really beautiful view of it. And there's a really head-on view right from ground level. And people have the privilege of actually going to the top. And although I've never been to the top, you could, you have to climb up, like, I don't know, a lot of stairs. There's no elevator, so you have to actually, you know, climb to the top going up the stairs. So I've never been up there because it just seems too daunting for me. But there's a view of it. Or actually, this is the view you get from the Campanile looking at the city of Florence. So we're, you know, so this is one of the things I got off the internet, of the view of the southeast of Florence, looking at it from the top of the Campanile. And look at this view. This is, you know, tempting enough to want to climb up all those stairs just to get this extraordinary view, looking off to the, this is, I believe, to the north, looking at the hills to the north and maybe northeast. But that's what Florence looks like. Quite amazing when you get to the top of the Campanile. So someday, who knows? I'm actually in better shape this year, I think, than I've been in a while, so I could try that. And then we go to Venice and we go to their famous Campanile, the Campanile of San Marco. So this is not the Campanile, this is the Campanile of the Church of San Giorgio Maggiore, just to show you, you know, this is what Venice looks like, an evocative shot of Venice. And this is their Campanile. This is a Campanile that is hundreds of years old, but actually fell down in the early part of the 20th century and was rebuilt to look exactly the way it looked then. And this is quite a beautiful tower as well, right in front of the church. There's a view of it from the completely different angle. This is looking at it. This is looking at it from the west, and this is looking at it from the south, from a boat on the lagoon. So that's what it looks like. That structure straight ahead over there, slightly to the right, is the Doge's Palace. And that's a really head-on view. And you wait online, and this is actually a great thing because you get to ride up in an elevator. And the view portion of that is right here. You can see it, these large windows where people go. That's called, you know, the observation deck, where you get a really extraordinary view of Venice. And this is one of the views you get. This is an amazing view of the Piazza San Marco. And you know, I've spent a lot of time in the Piazza San Marco, but getting the view of what it looks like from way high up is a really thrilling experience. And you know, you get a chance to see the cafes along the left side and all the people and the pigeons, and you get off in a distance, you get to see the lagoon of Venice. Here's another view of it from a slightly different angle, looking at it looking at the piazza more to the southwest at the Church of Della Salute. That's this dome right here, is the dome of the Church of Della Salute. And a couple of more. I'm not sure if I have one or two more views, but this is a view of it looking right over the city, looking, I believe, to the east. And I think this is the final view, looking off to the north this time at the city of Venice. And you know, what's interesting about looking at a picture of Venice from very, very high up is that you cannot see any of the canals. As you know, Venice is completely intertwined with hundreds of canals and bridges, and you can't see any of that. If you looked at this city from the top of the Campanile, you would not think that you're in the city of Venice, because you cannot see any of the canals. And that's what makes it very, very interesting. You don't get to see the gondolas and the motorboats and the vaporetti. You're just looking at the tops of the houses. Again in Venice, this is the Palazzo Bembo. And the Palazzo Bembo, for some of you who watch the show regularly, is the palazzo where Laura had her exhibition in the Venice Biennale last year during the months. Actually, we went to the opening in May, and it continued in this palazzo through the month of November. And the exhibition took place on the level just below the top. See, this is the level where the B&B is located. And we stayed in this B&B, as you know, but this is where the exhibition actually took place, right over here where the sign says personal structures, right in this. And this is where I stood, right at this window on this balcony, to take the next couple of photos. I actually took these photos. And you know, I never give myself credit for taking photos because, you know, whenever I talk about a photographer or videographer, I talk about Laura. But Laura said that I should give myself a little credit because I do take some of the photos as well. I took this photo from that point that I just showed you. And this is an extraordinary view of the Grand Canal looking south. And you could see all the motorboats, and I don't see any gondolas that are currently moving on the Grand Canal. There are some parked over there on the left and on the right, but mostly we're looking at motorboats and water buses. And that's what it looks like looking at the city of Venice, looking south. And this is one of my favorite photos, looking at the same exact view, but looking at it just prior to sunset. So this is like, you know, late in the evening, and there are the gondolas off to the left there. And incidentally, if you ever take a gondola ride in Venice, take it at this time. This is an amazing time to take a gondola ride in Venice. And this is an extraordinary view of the Grand Canal looking south. And then we come to the city of Verona, which I have not spent too much time, maybe actually no time whatsoever, talking about the city of Verona. But this is what the city looks like. And you know, Verona is famous for Romeo, the story of Romeo and Juliet. And in fact, there is a house which is called the Casa di Giulietta, which is supposedly where Juliet lived, but that's, you know, it could be a tourist trap, and it looks like it, you know, when we were there anyway. But from that tower that I show you over there on the right side, we will be taking a look at what the city of Verona looks like, and that's, you know, looking at it from a different angle. And that's looking at the tower, again, from ground level. But once you climb to the top of the tower, this is the view you get. And if you look, you know, if you look at this, you say, well, you know, what's the difference between looking at this and looking at the city of Venice? You see the red roofs, as you would also see in many cities in Italy, not least of which is Florence. But this is an amazing view of the city of Verona. And that's a beautiful piazza down there on the very lower right-hand portion. And looking off at the hills, not mountains, because, you know, you don't really see too many mountains from Verona. And that's another view, looking at a slightly different angle at another really wonderful piazza. And Verona's a really beautiful city. There's a river that runs right through it, and there are really spectacular sights and beautiful piazzas. They're known for their really beautiful piazzas and the streets leading to the piazzas. And that's what the city of Verona looks like. We hope to someday get back there, who knows. And then we come to the city of Bergamo, which is not far from Milano. It's actually, I would say, probably midway between the city of Milan and the city of Verona is the city of Bergamo. And Bergamo has two parts. Bergamo has a lower part and it has an upper part. The upper part of it is called, as you can see in that graphic, Alto Bergamo, which basically means the upper portion of Bergamo. When you get to the top portion, which is the older section, the bottom section is not a real attractive area, and people don't spend a hell of a lot of time in the lower portion. Although, when I made the reservation for a hotel in Bergamo, I chose a hotel at the lower level. But, you know, then when you take the trip to the upper level, and what you would do is you would take a funicular. That's one of those, you know, kind of like a tram or a little ferry that goes on tracks that take you to the very top. You get off and you walk around the medieval city, and this is some of the views you get of the city of Bergamo with the mountains off there in the distance. Those mountains, incidentally, are the Dolomites. And that's another view looking in a slightly different direction at the city of Bergamo. And that's another view looking towards the Dolomites. Okay, then we come to the top of St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome. And although I've never been there to the top, I've been to St. Peter's Cathedral many, many times, perhaps as many as 7 or 8 times, but I've never been to the top, and this is the view you get. And I took this off the internet, and this to me is one of the most extraordinary views of Rome. And you know, you're allowed to climb to the top of the dome, and when you do so, you get this view, which is amazing. And you know, this is looking, let's see, I think it's looking off to the southeast. Let me think for a moment. I'm not sure. This could not, everything I just said about the distance, you know, where it's looking, don't take that into account. I can't picture the Vatican and St. Peter's and where this would be located, but probably it's looking off, if I had to take a guess, like for one of those millionaire shows, I'd say it's this view is looking more towards the northeast, and you could check me on that. And that's really the only picture I think I have. The next picture we're going to be looking at is from the Victor Emmanuel Monument. The Victor Emmanuel Monument is this monument. And Romans, when it was originally built, did not like it because it's just an eyesore. It's on a beautiful piazza called the Piazza Venezia, and they call it, they have two derogatory names for it, native Romans. They call it either the typewriter, because it has, the steps kind of make it look like it's a big typewriter, or they also call it the wedding cake. But when you go to the top of it, you get this view, which is amazing. You go to the top, and actually, these next few photos were taken by, I should give credit where credit is due, these were taken by Frank Palaia, who took really beautiful photos of Rome that we've shown on the broadcast many, many times. This is a view from the top of the Victor Emmanuel Monument, looking directly at the market of Trajan, Trajan's market, And that's these windows right here. See these windows right along, sort of in a semicircle? That's Trajan's Market. And right in front of it is Trajan's Forum. And this is a really beautiful view. If you're really studying Trajan's Forum and Market, you get a really beautiful view. That tower in the distance is, I believe, the Milzi Tower. But that's what it looks like now, and this is what Trajan's Forum and Trajan's Market looked like when it was in its heyday, early in the first millennium. So, when you look at a picture, all you see is ruins, and you really can't get the true flavor of it. This is what it looked like. It was absolutely magnificent, and this is also a view of what the rest of Rome looked like, early in the first millennium. And I even have a then and now. I threw in a then and now. The then picture, of course, is the one on the right. And what it looks like now is on the left. And you can see the semicircle behind Trajan's Forum. This is actually what Trajan's Forum, one of the corridors looked like actually in Trajan's Forum. This is what it looked like 2,000 years ago, what the Romans looked like at that time. So it was magnificent. Now it's all ruins, but then it was quite a spectacular sight. And I threw this in because I wanted to show you what the market looked like when it was active. And you could see there are the awnings of a lot of the stores that were present at the bottom level of the market. And people would just, go there and use it the way we go to a flea market or a market today. And there's another last view of the city of Rome, looking at it from the Victor Emmanuel Monument. In the Victor Emmanuel Monument is actually a really wonderful museum called the Risorgimento, which has magnificent exhibitions. I don't think it has a permanent collection, but it has really beautiful exhibitions that we've gone to a couple of times. We saw an exhibition on Sophia Loren once that was really magnificent. And the very last, I have two more views. One is the Spanish Steps. This is a great view, top to bottom, from the very top of the Spanish Steps, looking down at the Piazza del Spagna, which is a very famous. It's more of a hangout than anything else. And I believe that the house where Keats lived and eventually died is at the bottom of the steps of the famous Spanish Steps. But that's the view you get from the very top. I have a couple of other locations as I see it. This is the Castel Sant'Angelo, and this is what the Castel Sant'Angelo looks like now. In medieval times, it was used as a fortress. Actually, it was intended to be Hadrian's tomb. In medieval times, it served as a fortress, and this is where, when Rome was being sacked, the popes used to escape through an underground tunnel, and this was a very secure location, to defend. And if you go to the very top, this is the view you get, and you get this is an amazing view of Rome, looking, in the opposite direction towards the dome of St. Peter's. And this is a beautiful view of Rome from the top of the Castel Sant'Angelo. And this is looking back at the first view site we had, which was St. Peter's, the dome of St. Peter's, and this is looking at the other view site, which is the Victor Emmanuel Monument. And then we have the final spot, which is the Giancolo, which is the hills south of the river in Rome. And this, again, taken by Frank Palaia, is a view from that point, looking at the mountains off in the distance. And there's, again, the Victor Emmanuel Monument, which kind of dominates the skyline. There's another view of it, looking off, I believe, to the south, southeast, and another view from the Castel Sant'Angelo. and we're back to the beginning. So that is tonight's show, and I usually end the show, the very last graphic is usually what the next show is going to be, but I must say that the next show is currently up in the air because I'm not really sure what it'll be. I have a few possibilities, but if I come home with something that I'm just dying to get on the air as quickly as possible, I may, be tempted to develop that show first. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the two shows, the street views of Florence and the views looking at Florence and a lot of other places throughout Italy from the top. But I will see you in a few weeks, and until then, buonanotte e buona fortuna. Whoops.